I just thought it was over. Someone hold my hand. Don't. Is this on still? Your hands are closed. So is it 4 times then? It's 8, but 4 people.
We are just extremely honored to be able to be here tonight and play for you. This is the Fergus Falls High School Jazz Ensemble 1. Thank you. Appreciate everyone being here. Governor Walz, thank you for being here. I appreciate these kids being here because they have very, very busy lives. We just had a concert last night, and they... So we've got one more. It's called Heat Seeker, and it's a fun one that we'd like to put. Well, they're all fun, I guess, but this one particularly. What is the order? 1.
Thank you. Please stand as you are able for the presentation of the colors and the national anthem immediately following.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets reckless, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing for the invocation by Reverend Douglas Dent.
Let us pray. God of us all, you gather us into community so that we can love and support one another. We ask you to send your Spirit to unite us, to inspire us, to strengthen us in our work together. We ask you to continue to bless us as we serve one another. Bless our homes and our families. Bless our elected officials and our public servants. Bless our students and our teachers. Bless our seniors and our caregivers. Bless our hospitals and our medical staff. Bless our utilities and our businesses. Bless our churches and our relief organizations. Bless our parks and trails, our lakes and wetlands. With your help, O God, may we be a shining city on the prairie, seeking the welfare of all of our citizens and welcoming all people to this community. It's in your holy name that we pray this. Amen.
Please welcome to the stage Mayor Ben Shire.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm really excited to see everyone here tonight. And I'm incredibly excited to talk to you all about the future of this community. But first, let us say thank you to all those providing music this evening. The Jazzmanian Devils, the high school jazz band, the chamber singers, later on, the PB&J singers. I can't wait for them. And at the reception, the high school chamber orchestra under the direction of Craig Peterson. What truly beautiful music we have in this community. We just want to say thank you again. To the American Legion Color Guard, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for being here tonight. Members of the Fergus Falls City Council, thank you for your dedication to this city. It is us as public officials that set the tone and the tenor for how we talk and communicate with one another, and we serve as a standard for our community's broader discourse. And let me say that the current city council is better representative, better, not perfect, but better than I've seen in my 12 years of public service. In the short time that you guys have been working together, you set that example of how we communicate with one another around difficult issues with civility and respect. That is leadership, and I say thank you. Representative Bud Nornis and Senator Bill Ingerbritsen were not able to be with us here tonight, but I spoke to them both personally, and they send their regrets. And I want us to thank them tonight for what they've done for the city of Fergus Falls and the Minnesota State Legislature. Over the past few years, this city has formed closer partnerships with state agencies than we have in our 147-year history. The library, the RTC bonding, the LCCMR trail funding, and the deed monies we have received have all been collaborations with the state, and they would not have happened without their support. I want us to recognize that, and I want to say thank you to Representative Nornis and Senator Bill Ingerbritsen. Commissioner Tony Laurie, thank you for being in Fergus Falls today. Thank you for taking the time to visit Lake Region Healthcare and speak with the staff about the important healthcare issues that rural hospitals and providers face. And thank you for your work in the state legislature as well. And thank you for the rural perspective you bring to the Department of Human Services. And Governor Tim Walz, the fact that you're in Fergus Falls tonight and taking the time to be with us speaks volumes about your commitment to rural communities. Tonight marks the third time that you've been in Fergus Falls since your election. And to my knowledge, that's more than the previous two governors in each of their 8 years. Thank you. To my wife, Tessa, and our children, thanks for putting up with me. My mother-in-law, I guess I'd put you in the same category. You know, a wiser fellow than myself once said that behind every mayor is an astonished mother-in-law. To my mother and father, to my mom and dad, thanks for being here tonight. Those who know me well know how much it means to me that you're here tonight. The example that you set, watching the two of you raise a family together while running businesses separately, coaching your kids' sports teams and volunteering for community causes, gave me an example of community that I hope that Tess and I can pass on to our kids. So thank you very much. But above all, I want to thank you, the members of the community, for being here this evening, for your commitment, and for your spirit. This community shows up. The fact that we had to move this event to a larger venue says a lot about this community. At first, when we had to move from the Center for the Arts, I was a bit disappointed because I wanted to talk about the arts and I wanted to talk about our downtown, and we still will. But then when Superintendent Jerry Ness called me and offered this space, I thought, how perfect. Because this building means so much to this community, and it also means a lot to me personally. 13 years ago, when Jerry became the superintendent of ISD 544, this community was in the midst of a very public and very divisive conversation over what to do about the district's space needs. It was Jerry's leadership that brought people together around ideas and solutions that fit this community and met the needs of our children. Jerry's retiring in a couple months. And I want us all to say thank you, Jerry Ness, for leading this school district through difficult times and showing us that we can come together and face our challenges. Thanks, Jerry. And for me personally, I have a lot of good memories in this building. It was right here, up in those hallways, back in 1985, that as a fifth grader, I met my wife. So a couple months ago, Tess was going through some of her old things, and she found her 6th grade English folder. And she said, hey, kids, look at this. That my folder says, Tessa loves Ben S. And Beatrice said, hey, Mom, why are there all those lines through Dad's name? Yes, it was also right here that she dumped me. Now, you can say what you want about me, And I've got people watching Facebook, so I know what you're saying about me. But you cannot deny that I'm persistent. It took me 19 years to get her back, but I did. And it was also right here in this building that I launched my first election campaign. There we were, my best friend Dave Olson and I, just a couple of nuts who thought, hey, let's run for president and vice president of the class. Sounds good. How are we going to do that? I've got an idea. Let's put jock straps over our heads and tell our classmates, we need your support. All right. So tonight we meet to discuss the state of the city of Fergus Falls, and let me start by saying the state of this city is strong. Tonight we celebrate our strengths, but we also recognize our challenges. We meet as a community in a time of change and challenge, but also in a time of choice. Yes, there's much to be concerned about. A changing retail economic system that threatens all rural communities. A mental health and addiction crisis that endangers both the communities and the families that make up those communities. And a fundamental disregard for respect and civility by far too many of all stripes that threatens the basic core value of how we talk to one another. But it is not these challenges, but it's how we face these challenges that will define who we are as a community. You know, people ask me all the time, if you would have known all those challenges that you're going to face, would you still have run for mayor? And I tell them, I don't know, maybe. Now, of course I would, because we in this community, we don't shy away from our challenges, we embrace them. So let's talk about the state of the city of Fergus Falls, and let me start by saying the city's fiscal condition is strong, and it could not be in better hands. There is not a better finance director in the state of Minnesota than Bill Sonmore. Thank you, Bill. The estimated market value of the entire city is $964 million in 2019. That's a 17% increase over the past 5 years. The net position of the city is $131 million at the end of 2017, which is a 4% increase over the past 6 years. And the city's total debt has decreased from a high of $29 million at the end of 2012 to $17.8 million at the end of 2018, and that's a 39% reduction. But we know, thank you. But the state of our city is about more than numbers. It's about our people. It's about their stories, and it's about our history, and it's also about our dreams. It's about what we've done, what we can do, but also about how we commit to doing it. Earlier this month, we officially celebrated the grand opening of the best library in the state of Minnesota. That library is possible because of the partnerships that were formed between the city, the state, private donors, and the voters of this community. That library did not just happen. It was a choice by the people leading that project, and also by a choice by the people of this community. You can tell much about the values of a community by the investment they make in their public buildings. Just think about what that library says about Fergus Falls. And it is fitting that the best library in the state of Minnesota has the best library director in the state of Minnesota. That library stands as a testament to our values and our commitment to our children, and our library director stands as a testament that leadership is not defined by stature or physical strength, but by a forward-thinking vision and the commitment to bringing people together. Thank you, Aaron Smith. And so we celebrate our newest building while acknowledging how tremendously blessed we are in this community with our historic buildings. And with that blessing comes responsibility, not only to the past, but to the future. Just think of how tremendously fortunate we are with all the historical assets we have in this city: the Caddis Hotel, City Hall, the Federal Courthouse, the River Inn, and the Kirkbride, just to name a few. We owe much to those who had the foresight to preserve those buildings. I want to say tonight that the hard work in the past year in finding compromise on the Kirkbride campus between the City Council, its taxpayers, the State Historical Preservation Office, the National Park Service, and the Minnesota Legislature that retains the historical integrity of that campus while reducing the footprint to a manageable level is something that we should all be extremely proud of, and it sets an example of how we're going to move forward on difficult issues by forging partnerships and working together. And when we think about that campus, not only from a historical or an architectural standpoint, but through the lens of the services that were provided at the Regional Treatment Center, we pledge to forge those same partnerships between the city, the county, and the state to ensure that those vital services continue to be offered in Fergus Falls. Mental health and chemical dependency are critical issues, and we need to make them community priorities. As we have transitioned away from state-run mental health facilities, the burden has fallen on our cities and our counties. Intervention and prevention have been replaced with incarceration. The call load in the Fergus Falls Police Department is up 30%, even though crime is down, and that's a direct result of the burden that this crisis places on local law enforcement. When I was a kid in this community, the frequency of critical incidents, including homicides, was once every 6 years. Today, it's once every 6 months. In the past month, there's been 3 suicides in this community. Enough is enough. We have to act, and we have to act now. Fergus Falls has always been a leader when it comes to mental health and chemical dependency. And our history tells us that we do not shy away from these challenges. We have an opportunity, a perfect opportunity, in the 60-bed facility that sits vacant on Western Avenue. The state, the county, and the city all have a stake in that facility. And we must make the commitment to partnering with our local network of providers to get it done and to provide the acute and transitional mental health and chemical dependency care to the individuals and families that are affected by this crisis. And while we're at it, let's choose to be a leader when it comes to the environment. In Fergus Falls, when it comes to our natural resources, we have been given much. But of those to whom much is given, much is required. Let us recognize it's only through building public-private partnerships that we will truly be able to implement meaningful yet achievable results. Let us work cooperatively with the Natural Resources Advisory Committee, with the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center, the local Citizens Climate Lobby, the Soil Water Conservation District, and the DNR, to build on the work that has been started. And it is with the work of these groups, along with the average citizen sitting in this room, who care about their environment, that led the city to passing a pollinator-friendly city resolution, to signing on to the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and to becoming a Green Steps city. And it is with that work that the United Prairie Foundation and Wildlife Forever approached the city of Fergus Falls to become the first Prairie City USA in the nation. Let's make a choice to get that done in 2019. Let's make a choice to implement the list of city-owned properties that can be converted to native plantings, not just because it's good for the environment, but because it's good for our bottom line. It will save fuel, it'll save labor, and it'll save the taxpayers money. Let's choose to continue working in partnership with Otter Tail Power and change all of our city streetlights to LEDs. Let's make the choice to commit that all of our new public buildings meet the University of Minnesota Sustainable Building 2030 energy standard, just like we chose with the library. And let's find a way to leverage Otter Tail Power's publicly owned property solar program. And let's support the private efforts to make this an EV-ready city. We have a moral obligation to seek cost-effective climate solutions, and the only way that we're going to achieve that is through strengthening city, business, and citizen partnerships. And the city of Fergus Falls will pledge to be a leader in forging those partnerships. And when we talk about the arts, let's just say simply that Fergus Falls is an arts community. But arts communities are not born, they're built. And all the wonderful opportunities we have in this community around the arts we enjoy today, and the national recognition that we have received come from the many people who have built that arts community. We stand on the shoulders of pioneers like Charlie Beck, Cindy and Jay McDougall, Jeff Sackman, and Chuck Christensen, who believed in a vision that making a living as an artist in a rural community is a viable occupation. There are so many people doing so many wonderful things around the arts in Fergus Falls. But tonight I want to highlight the spirit of one person whose ability to bring people together and not only see a vision, but realized that vision through collaboration has transformed our downtown around the arts. The Caddis Hotel, the Center for the Arts, and the Beck Gallery would not be in Fergus Falls if it were not for the work of Rebecca Peterson. And so it is with all these assets, and it's with that spirit that we face the real challenges of economic development that are in front of us. You know, back in January, I was getting ready to give a speech in front of a group about the future of the community, and I knew they were going to be a tough crowd. And right as I'm getting ready to go on, I get an email that comes across my phone. I just read the headline. It says, "Shop goes on the list." And I thought, man, that's the last thing I need today. So I open up the email and read the rest. It says, "Shop goes on the list of retail location for Girl Scout sales in Fergus Falls." Girl Scout. Whew. But we all know that Shopko was on the list. But does anybody think that this community is viable because we have a Shopko? Or because we have a Target, or because we have a Herberger? This community is viable because of those assets we have spoken of, because of the people and the spirit of this community, and we have to build on those assets. We must build on the incredible strength of our manufacturing sector and the relationship that they have fostered to provide living wage jobs for thousands of families in this community. And we must partner with them to see how we can help them grow. We must grow our own, and I will say that the City Council, the City of Fergus Falls, myself, we can do a better job in partnering with that sector. We need to do a better job of getting to know our existing businesses. We need to do a better job of advocating for our existing businesses, and we need to do a better job of helping them grow. We can and will do a better job of being your partner and your ally and not just your regulator. And while we build on our existing industry, we must also embrace the industries of the future. It has been estimated that the hemp industry, and specifically the hemp-derived production of medicinal CBD oil that currently has a market value of $591 million, will be worth $22 billion by 2022. We need to encourage our state legislature to pass legislation that would conform Minnesota agricultural policy to the 2018 Farm Bill so that Minnesota sees that growth. And Fergus Falls is situated perfectly to be a leader in this emerging industry. And we will embrace it, and by doing so, it will benefit our farmers, it will benefit our economy, and it will benefit our city. We must face the reality that the retail model of yesterday is gone and it is not coming back, and we must adapt. It is not the 1980s. But in the current reality lies opportunity. We must stop staking our identity on national corporations and invest in ourselves, in the entrepreneurs and the families of this community whose children attend our schools, who worship in our churches next to us, and who have a stake in the future of this city. And we do that by providing quality of life amenities that these young families expect in a community that they choose to call their home. And the key word is choice. There is more choice than ever for these young families of where they want to live. And we do that by focusing on our historic downtown and the beautiful river that runs through it. We've spent much of the last 2 years on the downtown riverfront master plan. Now it is time to stop planning and start doing. One of the sites identified in that plan was the dairy site, a site that includes 30 of the most beautiful acres in this entire city, yet has sat in a dilapidated state since I sat in this auditorium as a student. The Port Authority has purchased that property, and I want to highlight tonight the fact that as a city, we've partnered with the LCCMR, the Department of Employment and Economic Development, the EPA, and the state legislature to secure matching dollars, grants, and low-interest loans in excess of $2.9 million to clean up that site and get it redeveloped and contributing to the tax base of this community. And let me say that that would not have happened if it weren't for the Downtown Council and their president, Steve Erickson. And the 2-block stretch overlooking the river between Union and Court that now stand as parking lots, the City Council has initiated and identified this as a top priority, and they have initiated the project that will forge these same partnerships at the state and local level to turn those parking lots into an amphitheater, an interactive water feature, a riverfront balcony, and a market. But it will be more than just those features. It will be a park that will drive people downtown and to the river. And by doing so, it'll make our downtown as viable as it's ever been. We have a bill currently pending in the legislature as a partnership with the state in this project, but we have also secured nearly $750,000 from the Vidine Trust for the amphitheater, $600,000 from the LCCMR for the construction of pedestrian trails and bridge, and hundreds of thousands of dollars from local businesses with a commitment from the city to match those dollars and make this project go forward. And we will make this project go forward. We have begun that work, but there's much left to be done. And so we pledge to do it together. And how we do it is so critically important. Let us do it in a way that sets us as that shiny city on the prairie that Doug spoke about in his invocation. Let us understand that it's us and our local communities where the personal relationships can still be built, or where the difficult conversations can still take place because we take the time to know and care about one another. It has become painfully clear that we have far too leaders at the national and state level that are willing to put their differences aside for the betterment of our society at large. We cannot wait for Washington or St. Paul to fix our problems. The conversations that need to take place and the trust that needs to be built have to happen at the local level. They have to happen in our churches and in our local governments. They have to happen in our neighborhoods and in our schools. They have to happen on our front porches and in our town halls. And they have to happen now because there's far too much at stake. Let's do it for the future generations. And let's simply do so because it is right. And let us never grow weary in doing what is right. So let me close tonight by going back to that park. This new park that we choose to create together, let it be a testament to all we've talked about here tonight. Let it build on the history and the heritage of our downtown and our river. Let it celebrate and showcase the arts. Let it leverage public investment to create private development. And let it drive people downtown and support our Main Street businesses. But most of all, let it bring us together. We are blessed in this community with many beautiful parks, many of whom are dedicated to families that have been so instrumental in shaping this city. Tonight, let us recognize a family that has been every bit as impactful to the character of this city. A family that ranks among the most dedicated in the history of our community. A family that the Daily Journal wrote in September of 1930 had the distinction of getting here in a new and modern way. Henry Speece not only moved his family here, but he brought his own house as well. And that house still stands at 513 West Cavour. Henry's son, George Speece, grew up in that house, and at the age of 16, he entered the grocery business. In 1938, in partnership with his wife Laura, he purchased a grocery store in the 100 block of West Lincoln Avenue, and he named it Service Food Market. In 1954, the store was moved to 120 South Union Avenue, where the market is today. And it was that same year that George's son, Gary, started working in Service Food. In 1976, Gary and his wife Sharon purchased a store, and in 1979, they moved to their current location. You know, while doing the research out at the museum, I really enjoyed the old journal articles. And not only what the people have had to say about Gary and Sharon Speece over the years, but also about what they have said about each other. When John McFarland was quoted as saying, "Gary is blessed with an abundance of common sense," Gary replied that John was the nicest and most capable human being he'd ever met. When Vicki Jensen wrote in nominating Gary for a Community Hero Award that he was the most thoughtful and generous person she knew, Gary deflected again in typical fashion by saying, "She's as good a lady as he'll find." But my favorite quote was from Sharon, who summed it up perfectly what so many of us feel. He's so wonderful, she said back in 1994. We all look at him and can't believe he's ours. She also said something else in that same article that struck me about his common sense. She said that he only wears tan pants, so it's easier to match. No wonder, no matter what color windbreaker or ball cap he's wearing, he's always matches perfectly. Look at those tan pants. So tonight we think about all the ways that this community has been positively impacted by that family and how this community is better because of the generosity, compassion, and spirit of Sharon and Gary Spees. We think about Lake Region Healthcare, the library, the YMCA, the Humane Society, the Hospice House, the Salvation Army, the Cancer Center, the Community College, and the Community Arena, just to name a few. But those are simply what people see. The true impact of Sharon and Gary Spees lies in the work that they have done that we will never see, in the countless lives that have been changed through their generosity, in the college tuition for young people that they hardly knew, but they knew they needed it, in the stories of their employees who they believed in when others wouldn't, and simply the friendship that they have given so many of us, including myself. Sharon and Gary have been incredibly generous with their resources. They know they've been blessed, and they share those blessings with others. Gary likes to say that when the good Lord was shaking the sugar shaker, he put a little extra on he and Sharon, and he shares that sugar with others. But even more important than the giving of the resources, they give of themselves because they love the people of this community. Last month, Fergus Falls lost a dear friend in the passing of Marna and Tonison Brown. And when I think about Marna, and I think about tonight, of course there's a Gary story. Marna and her husband Eric and their family live adjacent to Lake Region Healthcare. And as a member of the hospital board, Gary was responsible for negotiating with the family and being a liaison during the expansion of the clinic. So one day Gary comes in the shop where Tess and I were working, and I could tell he was on a mission. How's everything going, I asked. Oh, we've got some issues in Elbow Lake. There's some things at the Cancer Center, all that gobbledygook. But today, Ben, I have to find the best meatballs in town. I thought, okay. So I heard the story later from Eric and Marna that when Gary came over, he worked with them through all the issues with the clinic's expansion. But what he really was interested in was their children. He asked them what their favorite foods were, and Anders said pizza, and Siri said meatballs. So a couple days later, Gary shows up on their front door with a giant meatball and a gift certificate for pizza from Zorba's. So tonight, let us take the example of Sharon and Gary Spees, and let us commit together to doing something for our community. Let us give of ourselves generously and love of each other selflessly. And let us simply get to know our neighbors and get to know what kind of meatballs their children like. Because in that spirit that Gary and Sharon have provided us, the spirit of civility, respect, and the generosity of ourselves, that we are at our best. And it's in that spirit that we dedicate our newest park to that family that has meant so much to this community. And it is in that spirit that we pledge to move this community forward, and we pledge to do it together. Thank you.
Oh, God bless you all. I honestly consider myself the most blessed man on the face of the earth. The good Lord gave me all of these people, and He gave me this lady too. Come here. Her father was the happiest man that's ever been born, I think, and he passed everything on to her. To be able to live with her my life. We've been married 59 years. I think it's 59 years. And well, she says not yet. But anyway, they've all been good. She's an awesome lady. And I honestly had no idea that this was going to happen tonight, but I sincerely appreciate it. I love this community. I think it's the greatest place in the world to live. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for living here, and thank you very, very much.
Zoe had 2 gigs tonight, so she just made it. Yay, Zoe. Well, good evening. My name is Amy Nordlund, and I'm the founder and director of the PB&J Singers, who you see before you. This ensemble of 15 middle school-aged young women and young man. We're very excited to receive Mayor Shire's invitation, and we are honored to be here tonight. PB&J stands for Pop, Broadway, and Jazz, and we operate under the umbrella of our wonderful local theater, a Center for the Arts. I personally am thrilled to make my livelihood in a community and a state that understands the value, the joy, the positive change, growth, and hope that the arts brings to the lives of our students. We will share 2 selections with you tonight. First, an arrangement of Hakuna Matata from Disney's The Lion King, which incidentally debuted at the Orpheum Theater in Minneapolis in 1997 before opening on Broadway. It's kind of cool. And then we'll also share an arrangement of A Million Dreams, one of our favorites from The Greatest Showman, filmed from 2017. So I hope you're entertained and inspired by these beautiful young artists, the PB&J Singers.
Hakuna Matata. I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me. That I call they can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things
Hi. With all due respect to the mayor and the governor, I think this party could use a little girl power. Plus, when I'm up here, that means the mayor's not up here going on and on and on. And I mean, it's not every day you get introduced to the governor, but it's not every day you get introduced by me, is it, Gov? But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the governor of Minnesota, Mr. Tim Walz.
Thank you. Thank you, Beatrice. The first time we met, she informed me that she was going to be governor of Minnesota someday. And every single time I've met you afterwards, I'm more convinced you're absolutely right. So thank you for that. To PB&J, thank you for an incredible performance, and thank you for making it so difficult to follow that performance after you were here. Grateful for that. To everyone who performed tonight, thank you. To Mayor Shire, thank you for the invitation, but more importantly, thank you for your vision and your passion and your kindness, and the way that you talk about this community is contagious. About a month ago, I invited the governor to be my guest at the State of the State address, and the reason for that is because the way he speaks and talks about this community, and he brings to life what are the possibilities, which brings me to the thank you to all of you. Commissioner Laurie and I were just mentioning, what a privilege to be with you here tonight. When it's easy to find and turn on your TV and find everything that's wrong in the world, I will tell you that much of what is right with the world is right in this room tonight. You can feel the sense of community. And coming to a State of the City address and listening to your mayor lay out both challenges and then turning those challenges into the possibilities, laying a vision in an incredibly changing economy at a time when our politics seems more muddled and more divisive than it's ever been. To see that laid out and to see community members, Gary and Sharon, to see the story laid out of what you've given in your heart and soul to this community, and to listen to the stories of each of you who are here, that's what this is all about. I think it's all too often and too easy to forget, and it's a forgetting that is a gift to us. It's a blessing that has been given at times by the blood of patriots, and our Legion brothers and sisters would know that. At other times, it's been given over the struggles to form this nation. But it doesn't take you very long again to turn on that TV and watch countries fall into chaos like we see in Venezuela today. It's a pretty fine line, and it comes back again to what are we willing to commit to make it work. And I see it here in this room. There are incredible privileges with living in this nation. There are literally billions of people around the world that cannot imagine gathering as free men and women to talk about and decide how we're going to shape our lives together, what type of communities we're going to live in, and what type of world we are going to prepare and leave for our children. We get that incredible privilege, but it comes with a responsibility. I kept hearing the mayor use a term over and over, choice. Yes, we get the choice. And one time, and you can always count on the British to be wonderful about this, Winston Churchill once said, "This democracy is the worst form of government except for every other one." And then he went on to say, but you can always count on America to get it right after they tried everything else first. And the sense was they were getting at our character. We are a persistent people. We are a proud people. But we're also ones that have figured out over these many years, when they kept telling us this democracy would not last 230, 240 years. Heck, they told us it wouldn't last 10. And here we sat, 2019, and it seems like, again, when you talk about how we're going to govern, it's the worst ever. It's fallen apart. You look behind someone's name and you see a letter behind there, and you make instant decisions about who they are and what their life looks like. And you start to see neighbors put up a yard sign in their yard, and it starts to dictate us. But all of us know that's pretty superficial. This is about community. This is about what Fergus Falls has decided to do together. And I come here tonight because this is where our future lays. The solutions to this state and this country's issues, they're not coming from St. Paul or Washington, as the mayor said. They're going to come from communities of neighbors gathering together to decide how we're going to live. And I'm here, and you've seen it. I listen to the mayors. I listen to the city council. And again, debating differences of ideas how to get somewhere is perfectly healthy. That's the thing that separates us from all the other ways of governing. That's the reason we have the longest lasting democracy, because we have viewed compromise as a virtue and not a vice. We have viewed progress together as something that should be celebrated. And we viewed our differences as a strength, not as a weakness. And so to come out here tonight and hear the state of the city is strong, I agree. But we have choices to make. And those choices are going to impact us. They're going to impact our children. I am a firm believer, again, looking across the state, that one of the most wonderful choices we have and one of the greatest freedoms that's been given to us, we can choose where we want to live, and that will shape the style of life we want to live. And I tell you, whether it's Fergus Falls, and some of you have heard me say this, I grew up in an incredible community where I felt embraced by that community. It's a place where I can't imagine growing up anywhere else, learning to play sports, hunting, fishing with my friends, doing the things we all do. And I graduated from a little school where I had 24 classmates, and 12 were cousins. And we didn't think, you know it's true. The proms were interesting, but it was still a wonderful community. But we weren't a failed Minneapolis. We chose to be who we were. We wanted that community to thrive. And what we knew, it needed some fundamentals. It needed to have a thriving and vibrant school to give us the same opportunities that students going to Minnetonka had. It needed to have access to health care so that we broke our arm when we were swinging on the swing, we could be taken in and get taken care of. And it needed to have a prosperous business community that was thriving and innovating to provide the jobs so people could live there. And there's different choices and different things you can live in life. If it's right for you to live on Grand Avenue in St. Paul, we want that to be vibrant. But what we understand here in Minnesota is, if Fergus Falls is thriving, Fairmont is thriving. If Mankato is thriving, Minneapolis is thriving. And the term I use is one Minnesota, and it is embodied in a one Fergus Falls. It's embodied in a one North Minneapolis. And the decisions that we get to make, like, are we going to make sure that we don't decide how well your schools are by your zip code or by your race? Because what we know is, and you heard it talked about here, when the state pulls back investing, you're going to have to make decisions about bonding referendums. And when I met a grandma down in Preston, she said, I've got kids that go to school in Preston, I got grandkids that go to school in Preston, and I got grandkids that go to school in Wayzata. And I don't understand why one of them has more options and smaller class sizes and more opportunities than the other one does. And we all know the reason is, if we force those decisions onto property taxes, we create a have and have-nots, and greater Minnesota gets left behind. If we invest and we make sure that local decisions are being able to be made by the leadership in this room, we do better. The same thing with local government aid. We made a decision in the 1970s in Minnesota to do two things that separated us. And when we did that, we shot up in life expectancy, we shot up in high school achievement rates, we shot up in economic opportunities and wealth that started to happen. When we said no matter where you lived in this state, we were going to equalize the capacity of the state to put out local government aid to let mayors make decisions that could be invested in things like the park and the beautiful opportunities that you've seen here, or water treatment plants, or whatever would be needed. And we made the decision that the state would not allow zip code to decide what your schools look like, and we funded them in a manner that made sense. Those are decisions and choices that can be made. There are fair differences that get brought up, but we have the privilege of making them ourselves. We have the privilege of choosing the life that we want to live, but we also have the responsibility to understand this is not a given. Since the beginning of time, people have tried to figure out how to govern themselves, and every single system has ground to a halt and ended up in anarchy at one point or another. The longest lasting participatory democracy and republic in the world is right amongst us. And when we have that capacity to do that, we create communities that are safe and thriving and provide all of the things that we want for our children. So for me to be here, it's a privilege and a reminder of the work that we do in St. Paul needs to be a reflection of the communities that we're serving. I stand in front of you not believing that we have the answers, but that we can be good partners with you. I believe when we invest in our communities and we turn loose entrepreneurial spirit and the private sector to do the things they're going to do, we thrive. We have created a way of life second to none in the world. We have created opportunities that are the envy of billions. We've created peaceful communities where our children can sing and dance and do the thing that we want them to see, smile and live in a peaceful, safe community. So tonight, to be in this room with you, I say thank you. I make my commitment to you again when I stayed the state of the state. I did believe, just like the mayor believed, the state of the city is strong, the state of the state is strong, but we have choices to make. And we can make them with the dignity and civility that you heard here tonight. We can disagree agreeably, and at the end of the day, we can understand. The privilege that we've been given requires each of us to participate. You are here on a Tuesday night to do the most incredible thing that you can imagine. Decide what your city wants to look like. So I thank you for that. I wish you all the best, and may God bless Fergus Falls and this great state. Thank you.
Please remain standing as the American Legion Post 30 retrieves the colors. Thank you for attending the 2019 State of the City. We invite you all to join us in the cafeteria for a brief reception.